You don't give a fuck whether you land or not, just let him go. Don't worry about you, you're gonna be a shitty fight, but you gotta let punches go. Last round. You can't wait until they get if you miss it, bang, go right back. And don't take 30 seconds to start another fight.
Alexander, I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody like me. I'm Sonny Liston, I'm Jack Dempsey, there's no one like me. I'm from Nairport, there's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable.
Look at that combination. And the turn.
I kept telling him he had no punch, he couldn't hit, he's swinging like a sissy, he's missing, let me see your box. I hadn't started dancing yet. A tremendous motivational first round, and Hearns gets hurt. Hearns got stunned. Pacquiao was stunned early in the round. Great first round. Incredible. Perhaps one of the best in middleweight history.
That black guy, he hits hard.
Fire!
Good, y'all. Y'all miss me? Feels like, it's only been, 4 or 5 days? 4 days since we last spoke. Did a little first time reaction video through the Alexander Brand and Andre Ward fight from Saturday night. We're going to do a little revisitation of that fight. And also, the post dramatics of this of that fight with Ward and Kovalev, possible chaos of the fight possibly being called off or not being a go. And Terrence Crawford calls out Danny Garcia. And lastly, Manny Pacquiao finalizes his fight with Jesse Vargas. That'll be looking to take place on November 5th. So we got a lot to talk about today. Do my formal introduction, I am George Dampierre with Real Combat Media, writer and reporter. And like I said, we did our last video. The last video we did was the reaction video for Andre Ward and Alexander Brand in a very anticlimactic fight. Mostly due to the fact that, with the opponent at hand for Andre Ward, not so much, how can I say? Well, let's just talk about the expectation, I guess. Because what we had here was Alexander Brand, a super middleweight, moving up to light heavyweight. But at the same time, Andre Ward has never been a power puncher throughout his career, even at lighter weight. So it would probably underline that in this fight. So maybe you could hold it against him, or not hold it against him for not getting the knockout. But at the same time, there was certain critiques of his performance, just for, criticism's sake. Nothing, really, how would I say, nothing really too personal or to sound like a hater or anything. Because like I said, I'm pretty neutral when it comes to Andre Ward. I can respect his talents and what he's done throughout his career. But at the same time, I can understand why so many people have I would say not the anger, but just the criticism toward his way of the way he goes about his business. But outside the ring, he's a totally cool dude, and he's a great guy. So, if you're, really challenging him on anything more than what he does inside the ring, then you probably are a hater yourself. And, that's just keeping it real. But, we talked about the fight, and one thing I didn't get to note on through the reaction video was the fact that even with the opponent at hand and how wild this fighter was, being Alexander Brand, the fact that, one thing you didn't really see too much was, any combinations from Ward. It was a consistent 1-2. There's nothing more than, just 2 punches. And, that's kind of concerning, seeing that, he is the lighter puncher, so it's almost always going to be that sort of ending for Ward. And in a way, it's really going to make him have to work that much harder if, he can't, get that full tool box assembled like that, put everything together. Floyd Mayweather, was able to get off in a few instances like that, but I mean, there were at times where, more notably, I would say, I think immediately to the, Arturo Gatti fight, where it was just extended combinations. But then again, it was Arturo Gatti, and I love the guy, so I mean, that's kind of like a double-edged sword to bring up for me. But the combination punching wasn't that great, and defensively, it wasn't as sharp as what we've seen Andre Ward in the past. And it seems to be that his inside defensive abilities are almost coming more into play now because of that. He of course slipped a few punches, but then again, this was Alexander Brand, who was swinging for the fences, and at one point swung so hard he fell on the fucking ground, like he fell on his face, clearly. So, that's something he's definitely going to need to, like I said, he's going to have to bring it all together. I haven't seen the Andre Ward of old, and it's kind of harsh to say, which Kovalev's trainer John David Jackson had brought up, is that he's it seems, and I don't know, maybe it's just the time off, but it seems that he's almost already on the downturn of his career, meaning as far as his abilities go, which it can be very worrying, and that's what Kovalev's coach has to build on as far as his confidence for Kovalev. Now, speaking of Kovalev, the past few days have been kind of a circus with this Andre Ward and Kovalev promotion situation. Now, apparently, Andre Ward was supposed to show up to a promotional event with main event, Kathy Duva, and, basically just go through some promotional riffraff. But, and it seems to be that's all it really was. Now, like I had mentioned in, I believe, 2 podcasts previous to this, it's been finalized. There's a location set, a date, a weight, everything. The contracts pretty much have been signed. Now, social media has been going crazy with this, I'd say, since Tuesday, of worrying that, Ward's going to back out. Ward's not turning up to the fight. And once you really go through the videos, there's about several videos. There's one where Steve Kim gives her like a face-to-face interview. I believe it was like UNC Live. And they also have a press conference. And then there's several videos like one-on-one with Kathy Duva, where, she says, it's been a promotional hell dealing with them, dealing with Rock Nation. And also that, the fact that Ward didn't show up, and that she was still sure that the fight isn't in jeopardy, which pretty much the only important thing to really take out of all those quotes was just the last one. The fight's gonna happen. Other than that, all of this pretty much just ceremony bullshit, really, to go along with this. I mean, Andre Ward not showing up to a promotional event, yeah, so what? I mean, he is coming off a fight. I mean, hopefully if you guys were maybe at least in L.A., I'm not sure exactly. Well, it would have to be in L.A. if Steve Kim was able to get her live there. But even still, I mean, it's if the fight is pretty much there. Now, what I do give credence to a little bit with this is probably how she's feeling dealing with Rock Nation. Now, Rock Nation is still a very new and green promotional company in this business. And they, from at least what I've been seeing so far with the dealings with Miguel Cotto and Gamboa, is that these guys really don't get their fighters enough face time out there to, like their main job is to promote, and they really don't do that great of a job with that. Here Andre Ward is pretty much just about the second, if not the pound for pound top fighter in the world, and even with Mayweather and Pacquiao, who were at number 1 and 2 at a time. No matter who they fought, they were still able to get pretty good cash. Definitely over $1 million, $2 to $3 million, definitely over that. Andre Ward was only making $150,000 for this fight. And pretty much a glorified sparring session, but like I mentioned before, these other fighters were able to have the same and at least still make some good money, which means that the exposure, or at least what they were able to pull in with, everything at hand, still wasn't enough to get their fighter paid. And it seems that Kathy Duva's validity in her argument is the fact that probably Rock Nation doesn't really know how to set up a really big fight. And again, this is their first really big fight, I would say, other than Miguel Cotto. But I think, Cotto's name alone runs off his own promotion. So he's set with that. I don't think Rock Nation really needs to contribute much to Miguel Cotto. But, I can understand that to a sense. But then again, like I said, everyone needs to just pump the brakes, as falsely noted by Andre Ward, as pump the gas, which, I think, you kind of want people to take off more with the story. It doesn't really make sense, but, we know what he meant. So, I guess that's pretty much it as far as what we really need to talk about. The point is, the fight is happening. Pardon the noises in the background. There is a gap in my window that I cannot get closed. So, therefore, all the background noise is going to have to seep in a little bit. Guys, just calm down. The fight's going to happen. There's literally, 3.5 months until this fight is, fight date is due. So, the fact that we're flipping out just 2 days after after Andre Ward's fight is, jumping the gun. Relax, all right? And I think there's too many people out there that are just that are literally just waiting for Ward to just pull out the fight. Which, I guess that goes to your agenda of thinking that, oh, look, he's a pussy and he's not going to fight. If you're a Ward hater, you're looking forward to that. But you shouldn't. If you're confident enough in your guy, well, see, that's the thing. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's not the fact that they're, fans of Kovalev enough to think that Kovalev can beat him. It's just the fact that they hate Ward so much that they think he could win and maybe he could pull out. Or maybe it's not that they'll think he will win and they just need a reason more to hate him. The fact that there's people out there, people like that exist is troubling but funny at the same time. Now, in other news this week, Terrence Crawford calls out Danny Garcia through Twitter in a number of tweets. Unfortunately, I was not prepared to actually bring up the tweets, which I'll be doing right this very second. But overall point was the fact that Terrence Crawford was making note that Danny Garcia's career is run by his father, and Danny Garcia pretty much had brought up the fact that, well, actually, I don't know if he actually himself had brought it up, but it is known that these two had faced each other before in the amateurs, where Danny Garcia had won. And let's see. We got a few that are already up right now. So, it wasn't that much he had offered. But his main tweet saying to Danny Garcia, how you run a weight class but pay someone step aside money not to fight you, but you ran through the weight class. How'd that go? Okay. I see what he did there. And also, who's better, Gamboa or Rob Salka? Which is, of course, a dig that Danny Garcia will pretty much never be able to get away from because of his stupid-ass dad, Angel Garcia, who, for the life of me, I know Danny Garcia is a decent guy. It's not... The funny thing is with most of these guys who get a lot of hate, they're really cool guys. They're chill as hell. and you would be friends with them if you knew them personally. And not that I say that I do, but I mean, I see how these guys carry themselves. And, you know, there's nothing to really hate about them on a personal level. It's just the manner in which they handle themselves. Like, knowing Danny Garcia the way he is, I mean, I get it. He's quiet. He maybe doesn't like to talk much trash, or maybe when he does talk a lot of like trash, he doesn't seem too good with it, you know? Like, he does it like with a smile on his face, and I don't know, maybe he just doesn't get taken as serious. But his dad, man, is just like an incoherent drunk half the time when he's just talking to media. And even as a media person, you're almost like, you don't even want to interview him just because of this dumb shit that he says. And it almost puts you in an awkward position to even like try to even have a conversation with the man. You know, where he's sitting there like dry humping. He's like, yeah, long dick style, like this. Like, and, you know, makeshift, like, got his hands out like he's actually fucking something. It's like, what the fuck, man? Anyways, to these guys going back and forth, Danny Garcia, you know, was tweeting back. After for a while, it didn't seem like he was going to say anything back, but, you know, he takes a dig at Terrence Crawford for, you know, only doing 50,000 pay-per-view buys, which, again, a valid insult. Not that it's not correct, but Danny Garcia is fighting on free TV constantly and has not fought on a pay-per-view unless it was an undercard. So, you know, while he can critique Terrence Crawford for that, he's never fought on one himself. You know, at least Terrence Crawford has headlined one, and at the same time fought a fighter that Danny Garcia had not want to fight at all, which is where Terrence Crawford was getting at when he said to pay step-aside money. So, but the thing I thought that was pretty interesting about this was, you know, the fact that when I first heard about it, it was already had crossed my mind after the Postal fight that, you know, with the performance that I saw, and I'm not sure if I even mentioned it on the podcast right after, but when I saw that, I was like, you know what, you know, and seeing how heavy he was for the fight, because remember, my main focus on this fight, or at least the reason why I thought he would lose, was because of the weight disadvantage he would have going into it. And it turned out he was actually the heavier guy going into it. So it seemed that the size meant nothing in the end. So with that being said, I always thought, well, gee, man, he goes up to 147, man, this guy could rule all that, because for my likings, these champions at 147, Danny Garcia, Jesus Christ, how am I forgetting his name? I'm looking right at his fucking face with the braids and shit. Keith Thurman. Damn, why was that so hard to bring up? You know, like these top guys, well, Kell Brook, but, you know, he's kind of off for the time being. Dude, I don't know any not biased boxing fan that couldn't see Terrence Crawford having his way with any of those three fighters. I think his main, his toughest fight would probably be with Errol Spence. That's more of a toss-up for me. But, you know, who's to say that he wouldn't be able to figure that style out either, you know? I mean, he offers way too much stylistically to beat Danny Garcia, especially just because, I mean, I feel like Danny Garcia is holding on to that WBC for ransom, because if he loses that title, he loses pretty much a good 50% of his marketability. You know, he's a popular fighter, and he has that championship belt pretty much everywhere he goes. You know, he doesn't take a picture without it. And he loses that, then he's just another guy. And once he gets that loss, which he should have had already, you could really take your pick, whether it's Mauricio Herrera or Peterson, who honestly I felt lost against Peterson. And who's to say that Terrence Crawford couldn't capitalize on what Peterson couldn't really finish up on, which basically was being active early. he hung around just a bit, maybe up to the 5th, 6th round, and then really started to put on his work toward the tail end of the fight. Had he been able to have something to work with in the beginning, he probably, and it seems on the scorecard, he would have won the fight. And even still to that note, I still thought he did enough, at least one or two rounds in the beginning to give him the advantage toward the end of the fight. But, that being said, I hope this fight happens. There's fans out there now that are saying, like, yeah, it would be a great fight. I hope it happens maybe like to early 2018. Like, you guys so predisposed now to having this bullshit marination process, rather than, what I'm starting to think that this whole marination word is really just code for sucky promotion, and that's part of the reason why you see, like now, you see Luis Ortiz leaving Golden Boy. Because they continue on to go on this marination tour and continue it with Canelo, who and when you use that word marination, we tend it for me, it also can over marinate, meaning completely saturates the whole juice of the fight, meaning it's completely dried out, and now you have a really well-seasoned meat, but it's dry as shit, and it's pretty much jerky now. And while some people still like jerky, it's not as good as the way it would have been. You got it when it was nice and juicy. Fucking motorcycle. But, marination just needs to stop. If the fight's that could do with more promoting, meaning with what the fighters do, get their asses on ESPN. Get them on the local news channel. Get them on fucking daytime television with Kelly Ripa. Get these guys exposure. That's your job. Oh well, he's not notable yet. Get his ass notable. That's your job. Otherwise, you're just paying for equipment on the fucking fight night, man. It's craziness. And fans need to stop excusing this bullshit. Because now you see a segment of fans just regurgitating dumbass lines from promoters. Oh, well, it doesn't make money sense. I heard a lot of guys coming out of the Carl Frampton and Leo Santa Cruz fight, with Frampton winning. And then, of course, there was a lot of people talking about him fighting Rigo. And people who I know damn well don't even go along with this bullshit saying, well, Rigo doesn't bring in that much money. Yo, I swear to God, who gives a shit on what money is being made by the fighters? You don't get no piece of it. You don't get no slice of it. You get nothing of it. So why the fuck do you care on who makes what and what makes a lucrative fight for either one? It don't matter because you ain't getting it. You need to stop this shit, man. You're only condoning the bullshit. Now we're crunched for time because, man, got me heated now. All right, now it was finalized. Well, with me doing an early podcast last week, because I really wanted to, on top of the really good fight that was on beforehand, I think was the Carl Frampton fight itself, and pretty much I'm trying to get better at this organization thing. I try to have the podcast ready by Wednesday morning. I missed the news of the possible announcement of Manny Pacquiao versus Jesse Garcia. Now, remember, this was only really brought up through Manny Pacquiao's manager, Michael Kantz, and wasn't really official yet. Pacquiao hadn't even spoken on it. So, duly, I waited until there was an official announcement. There was a lot of people just reacting to, oh man, Jesse Garcia. It's nonetheless, it's a champion. It's a pretty decent fighter. I mean, he did lose to Timothy Bradley, and his main claim to winning the fight was because he had him stumbled at the end that he probably should have won, or he got confused that it was actually being stopped, but it wasn't. But had a great outing against Saddam Ali. Definitely impressed me, and if he can build on that, this could be really decent and possibly competitive fight. But, you know, the problem with this was the fact that it wasn't Terrence Crawford. And what I think's going on here, and I'm not trying to make any excuses, but I really do believe that Pacquiao is still beholden to this rematch with Floyd Mayweather. He really thinks he's still going to get it somehow. So I think he's using this as a get busy, or pretty much a stay busy fight, or just to, you know, just to keep fresh, since he did look pretty damn good during that Bradley fight. And hopefully has this as his, you know, like I said, his stay busy fight in order to be prepared for Floyd Mayweather somewhere along the lines. Because remember, Freddie Roach believed that Pacquiao still has a couple of fights left in him, that he still looks fresh. And there's no reason to think that he'll stay retired after the Bradley fight. Now, if this Mayweather fight that Pacquiao is steadily trying to hold on to doesn't happen, I think he does give Terrence Crawford his match to finally give the passing of the torch. And I think it was, like I said, it's for the reason that he's still holding on to this Mayweather fight is the reason that he didn't fight Terrence Crawford. Now, in a more competitive and logical sense, you would think, well, gee, wouldn't you want to face Terrence Crawford to get ready for Floyd Mayweather? In the Pacquiao sense, hell fucking no. While the styles match pretty well, that's still a dangerous fight nonetheless. And once you get that loss, you're pretty much taken out of that. You know, you're taken out of that fight that you were trying to get with Floyd Mayweather. So, yes, I get the anger. I understand it. But, folks, this is Manny Pacquiao. The man has made a fucking... He's made a career of thrilling fights. Nail-biting, end-of-your-seat type fights. You know? Think he deserves a soft touch every now and then, man. He's taken fights that he didn't need to. Mainly the fucking fourth Marquez fight where he pretty much sealed up that trilogy. And now he's, you know, wanted to get that rematch again. But Marquez was good, you know? Because he did what Pacquiao should have done after the third fight. He's like, no, I got my validity now. I'm good. That's all I needed. I just wanted to get the knockout. Now I can call it a series with you. I'm closing out that chapter in my life. So Pacquiao, Vargas, November 5th. Most likely MGM Center. And that's about it for the podcast. You know, I finally closed out a podcast without, you know, just running on that last very second. So I got some time to spare till the very end. But those of you guys who care at all, if you guys were hearing like a possible like crinkling of a bag or whatever, that's an ice pack I have here for my hands. Been doing some training this past month to finally get some amateur bouts out the way. You know, I've been boxing for almost 10 years now and hadn't really gotten a chance to, you know, get my amateur career underway because of just personal things, and started college and, you know, a lot of things. So a guy with a lot of options can't really stick to one all the time. So yeah, man, that's just been me so far. So you guys give me some feedback, man. Comment, subscribe, let me know what you guys think. Hit me up on my Facebook, G.Alé Dampier, Twitter at Georgie Dampier, GEORGIE, on Instagram, G.Alé6. And oh yeah, forget, well, I mean, this is going to be shared on YouTube, but I doubt you're going to need to know it. But if you don't know, now you know. It's Georgie Dampier on YouTube as well. But a simpler way to find this podcast is just by typing in Hands of Fire, and you'll get it. So we'll be seeing you next week, where we'll discuss whatever is at hand. Till then, keep your hands up. Peace.